In February 1258, the Mongols surrounded the greatest city on earth. 13 days later, the Islamic Golden Age was over, and what burned in those 2 weeks had taken 5 centuries to build. As you stand on the banks of the Tigris River, looking out at the city, you see a metropolis that has been a center of learning and culture since the 8th century, when the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur founded Baghdad in 762, and by the 13th century, it had grown to a population of over 1 million people. What would you have seen as the Mongols approached, and how would you have felt knowing that the city's famous walls, built by Caliph al-Mustansir in 1230, would soon be breached? The Abbasid Caliphate, which had ruled the Islamic world for over 500 years since its founding in 750 by Abu al-Abbas, was in a state of decline by the mid-13th century, with internal power struggles and external threats from the Mongols, who had been expanding their empire under Genghis Khan since 1206. In 1241, the Mongols had already conquered the eastern Islamic world, and by 1256, they had taken the city of Alamut, the stronghold of the Nizari Ismailis, a Shia Muslim sect that had been a thorn in the side of the Abbasid Caliphate for centuries. As you consider the complexities of this period, you might wonder, what role did the Mongols' military tactics, such as their use of cavalry archers and siege engines, play in the downfall of the Abbasid Caliphate, and how did the Caliph's own decisions contribute to the city's demise, particularly his refusal to surrender despite being warned by the Mongol general Kibuka in 1257. On January 29, 1258, the Mongol army, led by Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, laid siege to Baghdad, using catapults and other siege engines to breach the city walls, which were defended by a garrison of 50,000 soldiers, led by the last Abbasid Caliph, al-Mustasim. Over the next 13 days, the Mongols bombarded the city, killing thousands of civilians and soldiers, and on February 1, 1258, they breached the walls and poured inside, beginning a systematic destruction of the city, burning buildings, including the famous House of Wisdom Library, which contained over 400,000 volumes, and massacring the population, with estimates ranging from 200,000 to 800,000 dead. As you walk through the streets of the city, you see the devastating impact of the Mongol conquest, with buildings reduced to rubble, and the sounds of screams and wailing filling the air, and you might ask, how could the Caliph's advisors, such as the Vizier Ibn al-Alqami, have so misjudged the Mongol threat, and what would have happened if they had negotiated a surrender, as the Mongols had offered, rather than fighting to the end? The destruction of Baghdad marked the end of the Abbasid Caliphate, which had lasted for over 500 years, and had a profound impact on the Islamic world, leading to a decline in learning and culture, as many scholars and intellectuals were killed or displaced, and the city's famous libraries and institutions were destroyed. The Mongols, who had been tolerant of other cultures and religions, installed a puppet government in Baghdad, and allowed the city to be rebuilt, but it never regained its former glory, and by the 14th century, it had become a shadow of its former self, with a population of less than 100,000 people, and you might wonder, what would have happened if the Mongols had not destroyed the city, and the Abbasid Caliphate had continued to rule? Would the Islamic Golden Age have continued, and how would the course of history have been different? As you reflect on the destruction of Baghdad, you are left with a haunting question: what is the true cost of war and conquest, and how can we learn from the mistakes of the past, to build a better future? And you are reminded that the destruction of Baghdad was not just a historical event, but a warning about the dangers of intolerance and the importance of preserving knowledge and culture. And the legacy of the Abbasid Caliphate continues to inspire and educate us today, with its contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, and its role in preserving and translating the works of ancient Greek and Roman scholars, such as Aristotle and Galen.